So this whole idea of Web3 and blockchain apps is still very niche, and I think it's going to stay that way for a long time until we can actually solve the problem, which is onboarding the masses. Because right now, if you think about it, it's just too hard. You gotta install a Chrome extension, you gotta like set up a wallet, save your seed phrases, onboard to crypto, send your crypto to your wallet, and then you gotta sign transactions. It's just a lot of steps to expect the average user to do. And so different chains have different solutions. For Sui, they have zkLogin and sponsored transactions, which are both on-chain native primitives that can help with the solution, help with the problem. So the first is the zkLogin, and that basically says, well, it allows you to create an account, create a wallet through OAuth means. So like Google, Facebook, GitHub, whatever. So you don't really need to. That solves the first problem of having to install the Chrome extension, having to install it to the wallet, and set up the seed phrases, because that part is handled by zkLogin. But even if you have your own wallet, it still doesn't solve the problem of actually signing transactions, because you need gas fees. You need some crypto to pay for the gas fees, and so that's where sponsored transactions comes in. And so both of these, like I said, are both on-chain primitives, but they are both very accessible with Enoki. And you can think of Enoki as like a SaaS, a service provided by Misten Labs, who are the same people behind Sui. And so it just makes it very accessible for developers to use zkLogin and sponsored transaction, integrate them with their app. But even if Enoki were to disappear, you can always fall back to the on-chain primitive. So I made this little playground. I wanted to learn more about these technologies. And yeah, so this first page is I guess it's just a playground just to show you how things generally work with the current Web3 flow. So I want to show you the code first, I guess. So this is a little small SvelteKit project with a contract, on-chain contract Sui, and it's got this object right here. It's called thing. Very simple, and it's got two methods, two functions: new thing, update thing. So it creates a new thing and updates a thing. And for the first page is just a bunch of UI and with a few buttons, and then the results once you click the buttons. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. So there's also the state file, which is kind of the bridge between the front end and the contract. So here it keeps tracks of the state of the UI, and then it has a bunch of methods that use the SDK to interact with the on-chain contract. So for example, create thing checks the wallet adapter. Is it connected? Is it not? Create a transaction, call the contract function, transfer the objects, and then sign and execute the transaction, and then sync back up to the state. So how it looks like, you connect with the wallet, and then you can create your thing. I think I already created. Yeah, so I have two things, and then you can create another thing if you want. You gotta log in, and then you gotta sign, approve, and then it creates a thing. And then you can get your objects. It's updated, and then if you want to update one object, you click on it, update thing, approve again, and now the health has changed. So yeah, that's the basic flow. And now moving on to the sponsored transactions. So this again is just page 2, and it's the exact same as page 1. It's just the only difference is that instead of calling create thing, it calls create thing sponsored. And I'll go over the differences between that too. But so just to show the code right here. So register Enoki wallet. This is this is for integrating zkLogin. Basically, you have the SDK, and then you call this register Enoki wallets, and then you have your where is it? Yeah, you got the client, and then you got the API key, which is from Enoki, and then you have the providers. So this is the OAuth stuff that you get from Google. And then once you got that, you get your wallets back, and then you can call connect wallets. So Google Wallet, if Google Wallet, click connect the wallet, pass in the wallet, and then yeah, that's basically it. So register Enoki wallet is tied to this button. Register Enoki wallet. If you click it, it does the registering. And then from here, you can sign. I guess I want to show you in a incognito tab, because right here it has no wallet as the average user. And so just so you can see what I mean. So you go sponsored, register Enoki wallet, and sign in. And so from here, can sign into your Gmail account. Continue. And just like that, you have an account. You have a wallet, and you don't need to install the Chrome extension. You don't need to set up your wallet. It's just right there. But still, you can't create anything because you don't have the gas. Wait, you can, because I set it up to sponsor the transaction. So jumping a bit ahead, but yeah, you can see that you can interact with an on-chain contract, but you don't have to sign. I mean, you do have to sign stuff, but you don't know that you have to sign stuff, because the flow is exactly like Web2. You just click a button and it works. You don't have to install a wallet. You don't have to send your crypto. You don't have to approve or sign a transaction from the wallet, and it just works. So yeah, you see that. You see the object. You can update it. Oh no, I didn't put the update function here, but yeah, basically you can create things, and that interacts with the on-chain thing, two objects. And if you want to just to show you the on-chain stuff, so Sui Explorer, we have the new wallet we just created, and it has two assets, which are just the items that we created just a couple seconds ago. And yeah, that's basically how it looks like. And so just want to walk you through how this actually works. So okay, yeah, so we are here. Sponsor transaction, we have register Enoki wallets, which is the zkLogin part, and then once you have the Google Wallet, you can connect it, use your wallet app or whichever dApp kit you're using, and then connect it directly to the Google Wallet. For here, I made a button specifically for it, but you don't really have to have this button. You can have it in the background, just just register and then connect. And then for the sponsor transaction part, that's in the state right here. So with the normal flow, we have create thing. We create a transaction, we fill it with calls, and then we sign the transaction, execute the transaction. With the create thing sponsored, it's just slightly different. We create the transaction, we fill it with stuff, and then we build the transaction. And then we build by building the transaction, we get the bytes, and the bytes we can send to our backend, and the backend returns the response, and then we can sign the transaction and execute the transaction from there. And so I think it's easier. I mean, I wrote down the steps right here. So just create transaction, that's front end, build the transaction, that's front end, and then you have to create the sponsor transaction, which happens on the back end because the key is private, so you can't use it on the front end. And then once you get the response from the sponsor transaction, you sign it on the front end, and then you execute it on the back end. So just to show you more about that, so we have the transaction here, and then from here, once we built it, we want to send it back to our backend right here. So we're checking out our remote function right now, and if you're not familiar with remote functions, they're basically like API endpoints, but a bit more modern, a bit more hipster. So like it's pretty much the exact same as saying sponsored response equals await fetch, but instead of you got to specify your URL, headers, body, and then you got to like .json it. So instead of doing that, because it's all boilerplate, we just have a remote function which executes on the back end. It works as a function, so you just call it directly with your parameters instead of all this boilerplate. So sponsor transaction, this is the command right here. It's all handled by the Enoki client SDK, and we just create a sponsor transaction. We get the response, we get the bytes and digest, and then we sign it on the front end as usual. And then from the signature and the digest from before, we execute the transaction on the back end again using the SDK. And then that's basically it. So one of the things that really shocked me, surprised me right here, is like you still have to sign and execute the transaction, but the wallet doesn't, like the wallet pop up and confirmation doesn't pop up. And so the user doesn't have to know anything about crypto, about Web3, about blockchain. It just works. And I still don't know how they do this, but in the docs, for signing transactions, unlike other wallets, signing does not require confirmation to approve the transaction. So I think that is the big, at least one of the big things here. So I think that is thanks to zkLogin. It could be with Enoki, I'm not sure, but yeah, that's pretty big. And so yeah, once you got the code right here, basically just create transaction, build, create sponsor transaction, sign, and then execute. It's just these two steps are different, And these are the only two extra steps for sponsoring the transaction that are fundamentally different: building and creating the transaction. For the auxiliary stuff, so like besides the code, you got to set up the API keys. So I have one API key. This is for the zkLogin, and it's a public key, so it can be shared. And then I have a separate API key, which is specifically for sponsored transactions. I know it says zkLogin right here, but I'm just using it simply for sponsored transactions because it's simply just, you can't do it any other way. If you try to use a public key, and like, you can't use sponsored transactions in public. It's only private. So yeah, I use the two keys in this part, and then this private key is for sponsored transactions, public key is for zkLogin. And for the Google, you get yourself a Google Cloud account. It's free. You go to Clients, create an oauth 2 client ID, and then you get the client ID right here, and then the client secret that it passes, and then you pass in your authorized redirect URIs, which for now is just localhost and the routes that I'm using. And also for the Enoki, I guess for sponsored transactions, you gotta put your allowed move to call target. So package ID, module name, and then the function. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. I mean, it's just, I mean, I found this Enoki stuff, this zkLogin, it's been out for a year, and just I feel pretty late to it, but finally having been able to play with it and see how it works in action is just, I think this opens up a lot of doors, because like, you have all the openness, the ownership that comes with Web3 and digital assets, and you have the interoperability, but you have none of the baggage that comes with having to manage your wallet, create a wallet, and send crypto and sign transactions, all that stuff. And I think it just really opens up the door for a lot more new apps, new games, new sites that don't have to work behind closed doors, behind like private databases, because everything is just open and shared by default on the blockchain. And yeah, I think that's really exciting, and looking forward to building more stuff with it.